Karma here with your July Astrology cheat codes. If you are here, you recognize that we are astrologically influenced by the planets and stars. And with that understanding of how the energy influences us, we can better navigate life's obstacles. So welcome to the club, and let's take an overall look at what happens in July. All right, so in July, we have several planets going into retrograde. We have Neptune, Saturn going into retrograde in the realm of Aries and will retrograde back to Pisces. We have Mercury going into retrograde in the realm of Leo. We have Venus transitioning into both Cancer and Gemini. We have a Capricorn full moon, and we have a Leo new moon. And additionally, Uranus crosses into Gemini. So there's a lot happening in this month, especially with this retrograde energy, because many of these things are aspecting back to Neptune and Saturn. So there's an emphasis here on lessons, okay? And when Saturn hits retrograde, it can become like a pretty ugly energy. Saturn retrograde energy can sometimes be a little funky, okay? Because Saturn is the planet of karma. Saturn is also the planet of lessons, right? So as it goes into retrograde, it makes you retrospective of the lessons that you need to learn. And sometimes that can be kind of hard. That's a hard energy, okay? That's a hard energy to navigate. So, Saturn is going to be in retrograde for a minute. All right. So this is just the beginning, but it will cross back into Pisces, so it won't be as active in that Aries energy, but nonetheless, still lessons on lessons, okay? Lessons on lessons. All right, so I'm not going to go into deep analysis of each individual transit. I will give you the energy of the transit as it is transitioning into whatever is happening. However, I will create separate videos for all of the things that are happening in July so that we can get a more deep dive look at what it is everyone is supposed to be working on. But this will just be a summary of what's going on in July. So let's talk about the signs. If you are looking at this from the perspective of your rising sign, okay, this will be most accurate for your rising sign. This is because it encompasses your horizon of your life, okay? Your rising sign, your ascendant sign, the horizon of your life. This encompasses everything, okay? If you're looking at this from your sun perspective, your sun sign, this will be in relation to your ego, your attention, your focus, okay? If you are looking at this from your moon sign, this will be in relation to your emotions, your instincts, and your intuition. Okay, so with that, let's jump into the individual signs. Libra, so overall for you, in the month of July, we have some planets going into retrograde in your 7th house of Aries. That is where Neptune and Saturn are sitting. And then you have Mercury going into retrograde in your 11th house. And then you'll also have a lot more activity in that 11th house. You'll have the sun crossing into Leo, which is in your 11th house. And then you'll also have a new moon happening in that 11th house as well. Additionally, you'll have Uranus crossing into your 9th house of Gemini. Okay, so there's heavy emphasis here on like your relationships or your bonds, right? And this is your outer world because this is the 7th, 11th, and 9th house. Okay, so this is your outer world. These are the connections that you make within your outer world, the actions that you take within your relationships, your bonds, your community within that outer world. And then there's also your flexibility of mind around all of that. Okay, so again, we have retrograde in the 7th house where Neptune and Saturn are sitting. We have retrograde in the 11th house where Mercury is sitting. which, you know, retrograde represents reflection, restructure, and repair. So there are things when we say retrograde, especially that Mercury retrograde, this like brings up things, actions that you've already taken, right, that might come back around to have you kind of reflect on restructure or repair. So there's heavy emphasis here around that 7th and 11th house with this retrograde energy, and you repairing like the bonds that you have. This could be also business bonds as well, long-term contracts, legal issues in that 7th house. And then that 11th house of your community, that's your social clubs, that is your friendships, that is your alliances, your acquaintances, that's your hopes and your wishes, your employer resources. Okay, so there's an emphasis here on, you know, for some people, this could be legal, this could be business related. For others, this could be community related, like the communities you involve yourself in. For some people, this is like heavy emphasis on your long-term bonds, the bonds that have existed in your life. Okay, Libra? So let's go ahead and jump into this in like a more detailed way. Let's look at the dates as it relates to July astrology. All right, so on July 4th, Venus enters into Gemini. So Venus is entering into Gemini in your 9th house, okay? And that is where, so let's first talk about Venus. Venus is the planet that rules over, you know, relationships, partnerships, love, beauty, art, abundance, harmony, and peace, okay? Your creativity, all right? And with Venus crossing into Gemini, it is sextile to that 7th house where Neptune and Saturn are sitting. Now, if we talk about Neptune, well, specifically, if we talk about Saturn, Saturn pops into retrograde later in this month, which we will talk about, but Saturn is the teacher. Saturn is about building of structure, building of things, lessons around things, the structure of something, taking your time, your ambitions, your goals, and the work that goes into it versus the results you get from the work that you put into it. Saturn rules karma, okay? So it's cause and effect, essentially. And really, with Venus crossing into your 9th house, right? Venus, which is, you know, creativity. We're going to shorten it to creativity. All right, so this is lessons around creativity within that 9th house. So this is discovery, this is exploration. All right, so your creativity within discovery, exploration, that Gemini energy, your flexibility of mind around discovery. Okay, so this energy, right, as Venus, and Venus is only going to be in Gemini for a little over 3 weeks, so it's just a 3-week period where this energy will exist. However, within the beginning of this, as Venus enters into those first degrees of Gemini, Saturn and Neptune are also sitting in that 7th house where your deep bonds, your actions, because that's the house of Aries for you, your actions around the deep bonds, the assertive energy you have around your bonds, the things that you do, the impulsive behaviors you have within those bonds, they're sextile energy. So you'll see opportunities for you to work on yourself as it relates to discovery and exploration within that 9th house, okay? And how your mind works as it relates to that, how your focus, where your focus is, where your perspective is, and then as well as, you know, that connects, that sextile energy will pull energy off of that 7th house where your long-term bonds are, okay? So this is like exploration of long-term bonds, really thinking about changing your ideology around, maybe, you know, shifting your perspective on how it is you develop, you know, long-term bonds, how it is you show up in your long-term bonds, the opportunities in which you have creativity in those long-term bonds, okay? Or vice versa. It could be your long-term bonds help you to change your perspective on what it is that you're doing around exploration and discovery in your life, okay? Flexible mind. This could be, you know, a best friend wants to go. You don't want to go across seas, all right? I don't want to explore nothing where I got to cross a body of water. I want to stay right where I live, right in my home, you know, right on land. And a best friend is like, I want to go to Thailand. Or, you know, a spouse is like, I want to go to Thailand. I want to go to Thailand. I want to go to Thailand. And I really want for you to come with me because I want this opportunity, right? And that energy, that's an opportunity for you to explore and be flexible in how you think about exploration of world or exploration exploration of ideology. The ninth house is also about spirituality, right? So this could also have a spiritual aspect to it as well. Okay, so as Venus enters that ninth house, this is your creative habits around your creative habits and how you think about your discovery, exploration. This could be religion, this could be law, this could be spirituality, second life partner, higher education. Okay, so that is Venus entering into Gemini. On the same day, Neptune, yay, hooray, hooray, goes into retrograde. So it's the first planet in July. I feel like it just got so dark. I hope my lighting is okay. It must be about to rain or something like that. Anyway, Neptune goes into retrograde on the 4th. So Neptune is going to be in retrograde for a minute. Okay. Neptune is going to be in retrograde for the remainder of 2025, and so is Saturn. That's just what it is. Okay, so Neptune pops into retrograde. Neptune is one of those outer planets. It moves slow. Neptune represents your imagination, the hidden, your subconscious, your illusions, delusions, confusion, self-sabotage. This is, the house where, substance abuse is. This is a house where your desires and your fantasies are. Okay, so Neptune goes into retrograde in that 7th house. Okay, so again, this is the house of long-term bonds. This is the house where, you have the friends that have been your friends for many years. You have your marriage, or, a very extremely long relationship. You have a business partnership, your lawyers, or, some sort of legal situations. That's your 7th house. Okay, so Neptune goes into retrograde. And again, retrograde is about restructure, reflection, repair. Okay, so you will see opportunities, pop up as Neptune hits retrograde. And again, this is about like your impulsive behaviors, your habits, the courage that you have around your long-term bonds. This is about maybe your impatience or aggressiveness within that area of your life. This is opportunities in which you can come back and fix some energy, repair some energy, restructure something. Okay. Then on July 7th, Uranus enters Gemini. So again, your 9th house, you hear a lot of 9, 7, 9, 7, 9, 7, 9, 7. So in your 9th house, which is your house of Gemini, okay, Uranus enters Gemini, and it is still very close to Venus, okay? So Venus will likely have traveled a couple of degrees at this point. However, Uranus will still be relatively close to Venus. And Uranus represents change. It represents rebellion. It represents originality. And really, Uranus is about out with the old, in with the new, like change, right? Like changing structures, kind of like how each generation is very different, right? And they come and they destroy the structures that the prior generation had, baby boomers, and then you have generation whatever, then you have the millennials, then you have, I'm a millennial, so I really only know who the millennials are. All the other generations, generation XYZ, whoever, right? And everyone is different. That is the Uranus energy, and Uranus is an outer planet, right? So this is an energy that is going to be in Gemini for some years, I'm talking about years, like 10 plus years. Okay, so there is an emphasis here around the flexibility of your mind, how you think. Gemini energy, curiosity, imagination. Okay, so this is your 9th house. So this goes back to what I was saying. You have Neptune in retrograde in your 7th house of your long-term bonds, and then you have Uranus entering Gemini, which is your 9th house, right? So there's a change happening here. There is a deconstruction of something old and the beginning of building something new, right? So in this case, as Uranus enters Gemini, we're going to go back to that example of, a best friend or a partner, a spouse is like, I want to go to Thailand. And maybe prior to, maybe last year, you guys had the opportunity to go on an overseas trip, but you kind of flaked out at the last minute because you was like, I'm not feeling traveling across the seas. Like, I don't want to hop on an airplane. I don't want to hop on a ferry. I want to stay home. So you don't go. So now we come back around, right? and you have another opportunity. Right now you get to revisit. The friend is back, the spouse is back, and they're like, okay, and we have another opportunity to, let's say, go to Greece. All right, I want to go to Greece. I want to, go see Athens. I want to go see Santorini, and I want for you to come with me. Last time you flaked on me in the last minute, and I really want for you to come with me. This is a time where you have the opportunity. Again, there's sextile energy between that 9th and that 7th house, right? You have the opportunity to be flexible in how you are thinking, right? Because likely there is something, across the seas that waits for you, that changes your mentality, that helps you to grow deeper into yourself and better understand yourself intrinsically, right? So this is where, when I say opportunities, that doesn't mean you're going to be shifted into something that is guaranteed. There is something here. Here is this opportunity. Do you want to take it? It's up to you to say yes or no. Okay, if you want to stay, if you want to stay in the same mentality, you very well can. But again, life is about lessons, and life gets harder and harder if we refuse to learn the lesson that we are supposed to be learning. Okay? On July 10th, there's a Capricorn full moon in your 4th house. So back in January 29th or so, there would have been something that was developing in your 4th house of home. This would have been something related to like your mother, your sense of security, roots, your childhood, generational gifts, okay, literal home, real estate, right? There's something that popped back in January that would have been developing over the last 6 months, and there's something here on this Capricorn full moon that'll pop up for you on July 10th that will give you a little bit more clarity as it relates to your progress or the end result of whatever it is that was happening in January. Okay, so look out for that. On July 13th, Saturn pops into retrograde in that 7th house. Again, 7th house, 7th house, 7th house. And again, there's a conjunction happening between Neptune and Saturn. Saturn is the planet of teacher, like I said. Saturn is the planet of karma. Saturn is cause and effect. The effort you put in, the results you get out from those efforts. Okay, so there's sextile energy between that 7th and that 5th house of Aquarius. So overall, if we really talk about this, Pluto is in the 5th house, right? So this is your self-expression. This is an internal portion of you, your self-expression, where it is that you find pleasure and entertainment, the things that you choose to create. This is the house of children. All right. So as Pluto is in the 5th house, right? Pluto's going to be there till 2040 something. Okay, so Pluto gonna be there for a long time. Pluto is also in retrograde, okay? So both Saturn and Pluto are in retrograde, and they're sextile to one another. So you're gonna see opportunities overall around lessons about your uniqueness, right? How it is that you express yourself, the uniqueness around you expressing yourself, the things that you do, the originality that you have, the social behaviors that you have. This could also be like your habits of rebellion, okay, in a lower vibrating energy, or maybe you feeling like some sort of outsider or feeling not included as it relates to how it is that you create or how it is that you express yourself, right? And this is in relation to your 7th house, which is your long-term connections, your long-term bonds. So 5, 7, 9, your 5th house, which is like short-term dating. This is like your sexual, escapades. Then you have your 7th house. That's where your marriage resides. That's where your long-term bonds, your long-term friendships reside. Okay, then you have that 9th house, right? That 9th house, again, represents your discovery, your exploration. It also holds your second partner. So for some people, this is heavy relationship energy. For others, this is the things you create. This could be related to business. For others, this could be like how you go explore the world, your ideology around how you express yourself, and maybe changing that, right? So there is an emphasis here on flexibility around your actions, okay? And with Saturn in retrograde in that 7th house, we have lessons around long-term bonds, okay? We have things, and again, retrograde is restructure, reflection, repair, right? So these are things that you may have already experienced, or energy that looks very similar to something that you've experienced in the past, and you have the opportunity to reflect, restructure, or repair your energy so that you can approach it in a different way maybe and get a different solution or different results, okay? Then on July 18th, we have Mercury popping into retrograde, and that is in your 11th house. Okay, so your 11th house, that is your house of community, that is your house of Leo. And this is, again, there's heavy emphasis here on like your self-expression, how it is you discover, how it is you explore, the bonds you choose to connect, and also like your community. Okay, so it's sextile, 11th house is sextile to that 9th house. So you catching what I'm saying? 11th house to the 9th house to the 7th house to the 5th house, right? 5th house, all of these houses have some sort of emphasis on relationships, the connections, discovery, or creativity, right? And a lot of this for you, Libra, is in your outer world, right? So these are the connections you make outside of yourself, right? So there's sextile energy. Sextile does not mean good. It does not mean bad. It just simply means you have opportunities coming your way to change your behaviors. Okay, so Mercury going into retrograde in that 11th house represents you having restructure, repair, reflection around your community, your friendships. This could be, you know, maybe not so deep bonds. These are, you know, acquaintances. These are your hopes and wishes. This is charity, earned wealth, employer resources. Okay, your memberships, you know, your employer finances, basically. Okay, so again, back to that 9th house of exploration and discovery, the flexibility of your mind as it relates to that. There are opportunities tying that back to your community. And then on July 22nd, the sun enters Leo. We enter Leo season. Our focus will become more on that 11th house, all right? Your community, the courage you have in that, your self-expression, your creativity there, maybe your pride, your ego that you have within that house, right? And again, still sextile to that 9th house, could be changing your ideology around that. That is what Leo season is going to bring for you. Shortly after that, right, July 24, we have a new moon in Leo. Okay, so this is the start of something. Okay, this is where the moon is really close to the sun, and then also Mercury. They're all like coupled up right there, I think, within that first decan, right? So it's true Leo energy, and Mercury being in retrograde now, right? It brings in lessons around how it is that you operate within your community. And again, that 9th house is sextile, or that 11th house is sextile to that 9th house, which is, and it's also trying to the 7th house. So 11, 9, 7, 5, right? So it's trying to the 7th house where Saturn and Neptune are sitting. And as the moon hits those first degrees of Leo, it is going to activate some stuff as it relates to your lessons around Saturn and your deep bonds. It's going to activate some stuff around your lessons, around exploration and discovery, and it's going to directly link that to your community, the bonds that you have, your short-term dating. That's the 11th, the 9th, the 7th house, and then also the 5th house, right? Because they're all connected. And then last but not least, we have Venus entering Cancer on July 31st, okay? So as Venus enters Cancer, it creates a square to that 7th house, 7th house, 7th house, 7th house, 7th house, long-term bonds, okay? So the square energy, this is Cancer, Aries, fire, water, doesn't really mesh. Don't mesh. Water, fire, don't mesh, right? So it's pulling you in opposite directions, or it's like oil and water, right? It just won't mix. It's going to be difficult. You're going to find frustration here. You're going to find tension here. And again, it's not a good or a bad thing. This just means that you're going to have to dig into your toolbox and find some tools, dust them off, your special tools to deal with this energy, okay? So this is between your 10th house, okay? So Venus enters Cancer, and that's your 10th house. This is your house of ambition. So the energy that we're talking about, that 11th, that 9th, that 7th, that 5th house, right? It is going to be directly impacted in your 10th house, which is your house of ambitions. This is where your goals reside. This is your career. This is your influence. This is the power that you have. And again, these larger numbers, 6 or 7 through 12, right, are your outer world, right? So this is like work. This is career. This is, you know, the honor that you have. This is the status that you hold in society, right? This is square energy. So it's maybe not gonna feel so good, right? But again, this is a lesson in how you approach things as it relates to what it is you commit to in that 7th house. Again, Saturn and Neptune are going to be in retrograde in that house. So as Venus enters Cancer, this is about nurturing those connections. This is about finding peace and harmony. And you're going to find it a little bit difficult to find that because of this square energy. But again, it's just lessons, because Saturn sits there, on how to approach this in a better way. Okay, so overall, Libra, emphasis on your 11th, 7th, 9th, 5th houses, your relationships, your bonds, the flexibility of your mind, the courage that you have within this. This is your entertainment, the creativity that you have. This is your long-term bonds, and the impulsive behaviors or the quick motions you have within that. This is your 9th house, which is your exploration and discovery, and your flexibility in mind around that. And then your community, how it is you show up, how it is your ego and pride is triggered based on that. Okay, so overall, July is going to be a little bit difficult for everybody, but hopefully with watching this video, you will have a better idea of what's to come. I hope this reaches you well, Libra.